A terrified 7-year-old girl, running from a danger nobody else could see, pinned her last hope on a group of men everyone in her town was afraid of. She was running on pure adrenaline, her bare feet pounding against the hard pavement of Main Street. Tears cut clean paths through the grime on her cheeks, and every breath was a sob, a desperate gasp for air. Ahead of her, shimmering in the heat, wasn't the police station or the firehouse. It was a row of chrome and steel parked in front of the town's most avoided spot, the Rusty Mug Diner. Leaning against those bikes were the Hell's Angel Motorcycle Club. And what they did in the next 60 seconds would change her life and their town forever. Before we dive into what happens next, make sure you subscribe for more stories that will restore your faith in humanity and prove that heroes don't always wear capes. All right, let's get back to the story. Our story unfolds in Oak Haven, Connecticut, a town that looked like it was ripped straight from a postcard. Picket fences, perfect lawns, and old oak trees gave it a feeling of unshakable peace. But in a town like Oak Haven, conformity was everything. Everyone knew everyone else's business, and everyone agreed on one thing: the Hell's Angel Motorcycle Club was a stain on their perfect community. There were only a dozen or so members, but their presence was as loud as their Harleys. They were the complete opposite of Oak Haven's quiet charm. Covered in leather and denim, with wild beards and tattooed stories on their arms, they were the town's resident monsters. Parents would literally pull their kids to the other side of the street when they saw them coming. Whispers and rumors followed them like a shadow, tales of a dark past that grew bigger with every retelling. The townspeople didn't see men. They saw a threat to the peaceful bubble they'd built. The unofficial leader was a man they called Sarge. His real name was long lost to the road, but his title was earned in the military, a life that had carved lines of sorrow and discipline around his eyes. He didn't say much, but when he did, his low, gravelly voice made people listen. Then there was Preacher, who, despite looking just as rough, had a quiet wisdom about him. He was the club's conscience. And among them was Styx, a young guy in his 20s, just a prospect, eager to prove himself and find his family in the brotherhood. They mostly kept to themselves. During the day, they worked odd jobs. Sarge was a mechanic, Preacher a carpenter. At night, you could find them at the Rusty Mug, drinking black coffee in the corner booth everyone else left open for them. They were surrounded by an invisible wall of fear, in Oak Haven but not really a part of it. On the other side of town, in a house that looked as perfect as all the others, lived 7-year-old Lily. To the world, she was a shy kid who was always clutching a worn, one-eyed teddy bear named Captain Patches. Her teacher said she was a talented artist but rarely spoke. Neighbors just saw her playing alone in her yard. But inside that house, the silence was heavy and suffocating. Her mother, Elena, was like a ghost, her smiles getting rarer and her eyes looking haunted. Her father, Mark, was a man with two faces. In public, he was charming and friendly, the guy who organized the block party. But behind closed doors, that charm curdled into venom. His voice became a weapon, his anger a storm that could break at any second. Lily had learned to read his moods, to make herself small and invisible, clutching Captain Patches as the only thing keeping her afloat. The danger she was running from wasn't some stranger in the dark. It was the man who was supposed to protect her. That afternoon, the storm broke harder than ever before. It started with a shattered plate, the sound making Lily jump. Then the shouting started, a tidal wave of anger aimed at her mother. Lily hid in her room, hands pressed over her ears, but she couldn't block out the sounds of her world falling apart. She heard a thud, then a choked cry from her mom. In that instant, something inside her just snapped. Survival instinct, a primal force she never knew she had, took over. She grabbed a small backpack she'd secretly packed weeks ago, a change of clothes, a water bottle, and a drawing of a sun. With Captain Patches tucked under her arm, she slipped out the back door. Her little legs pumped, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had no plan. She just knew she had to run. She cut through backyards and scrambled over low fences. A few neighbors looked up, a little surprised, a little annoyed. They saw a kid running, maybe late for dinner. No one saw the sheer terror in her eyes. She ran past the park, past the library, past all the places a child should feel safe. Because for her, none of them were. Her lungs burned and her legs felt like they were made of lead. But she kept going, haunted by the image of her father's face twisted in rage. She didn't know where she was headed until she saw them. The motorcycles, the black leather, the Hell's Angel. Every story she'd ever heard told her to run the other way. These were the bad men, the monsters. But as her world fell apart, her kid logic made a desperate choice. Monsters were scary, but her father was scarier. And these men, they looked strong. They looked like they weren't afraid of anything. The whole town seemed to freeze. The ladies in the bakery peered through the window. The mailman stopped his truck. Everyone watched as the little girl, Oak Haven's symbol of innocence, ran straight for the embodiment of its fears. They expected the bikers to sneer, to shoo her away. Lily stumbled the last few feet and collapsed right at the edge of their circle. She looked up, her vision blurry with tears, at the mountain of a man now standing over her. It was Sarge. His face, etched with lines from 100 battles, was impossible to read. He didn't move for a second, just taking in the sight of the trembling, weeping child. His brothers, Preacher and Styx, had gone silent. The diner went quiet. All of Oak Haven seemed to be holding its breath. Then Sarge did something no one saw coming. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he was trying not to spook a cornered animal. He dropped to one knee, bringing his massive frame down to her level. The leather of his pants creaked, the only sound in the sudden stillness. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't the growl the town imagined. It was low, gentle, and unbelievably calm. "Hey there, little one," he said, his voice a soft rumble. "What's all the hurry? You're safe now." He didn't try to touch her, He just knelt there, a wall of leather and patience. Lily looked into his eyes, and for the first time she didn't see a monster. She saw a deep, weary sadness, and under it, a flicker of something she hadn't seen in her own home for a very long time. Kindness. Her sobs hitched. She took a shaky breath and managed to whisper, the words carrying the weight of the world. "He's coming," she trembled. "Please, hide me." The words hung in the air for just a second. There was no discussion, no vote. An unspoken code of loyalty pulsed through the Hell's Angel. Sarge gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. Instantly, Preacher and Styx moved. They didn't draw weapons or raise their voices. They rose from their chairs and, with 2 other members, formed a quiet, solid wall behind Sarge and the little girl. They became a living fortress of denim and leather. Styx, the youngest, looked nervous, but his feet were planted firm. Preacher's face was like stone as his eyes scanned the road. Sarge turned his attention back to Lily. "What's your name, little warrior?" he asked softly. "Lily," she whispered, her voice a bit stronger now. "Okay, Lily, we're the Hell's Angel. And right now, that means we're your sentinels. Nobody's getting past us." He gestured to the teddy bear in her arm. "Who's your co-pilot?" "Captain Patches," she said, almost smiling. "Good. The captain's on watch with us then." Just then, a car screeched to a halt. The door flew open and Mark, Lily's father, stormed out. To anyone else, he looked like a concerned parent, his face flushed with worry. "Lily, what are you doing? Get away from them! Get in the car right now!" His voice was loud, demanding, the voice of a man who expected to be obeyed. Lily flinched and pressed closer to Sarge's leg. Sarge didn't even look back at her. His eyes were locked on Mark as he slowly rose to his full, intimidating height. "The little lady seems pretty scared," Sarge said, his voice calm but laced with steel. "I think she's going to hang out with us for a bit, until she feels better." Mark's mask of the worried father began to crack. The rage Lily knew so well flashed in his eyes. "Who the hell do you think you are? That is my daughter. You have no right to keep her from me." "Right now," Preacher added, his voice smoother but just as firm, "we're just a few citizens concerned about a terrified child, a child who ran to us for help." Mark jabbed his finger in the air. "I'm calling the police. You're kidnapping my daughter." "Please do," Sarge said, pulling out his own phone. "Let's get Sheriff Bradshaw down here. I'm sure he can sort this all out." The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. The townspeople who had been watching from a distance started creeping closer. This was the confrontation they had always feared, but it wasn't playing out how they'd imagined. The bikers weren't the aggressors. They were protectors. Just as Mark was about to lunge, a siren cut through the air. Sheriff Bradshaw's cruiser pulled up. The sheriff, a man used to Oak Haven's minor problems, stepped out, his hand resting on his weapon. He saw the furious, respectable citizen, the circle of intimidating bikers, and the tiny girl half hidden behind their leader. His expression hardened. This was exactly the kind of trouble he expected from the Hell's Angel. Sheriff Bradshaw was a by-the-book kind of guy, and the book said a bunch of bikers surrounding a child was the problem. "Sarge, what's going on here? Step away from the girl." Sarge didn't budge. "With all due respect, Sheriff, she ran to us. Said she was terrified and needed to hide." "We're just keeping her safe till you got here." Mark jumped on the opportunity. "Sheriff, thank God! These thugs are trying to take my daughter. Arrest them!" The sheriff looked from Mark's frantic face to Sarge's unyielding calm. It was chaos versus order, but the roles were flipped. Then he looked at Lily, who was peering out from behind Sarge's leg. The sheriff's training kicked in. "You always listen to the child." He knelt down, just as Sarge had, and softened his voice. "Hey there, Lily. I'm Sheriff Bradshaw. Can you tell me what's wrong? Why'd you run?" Lily looked at Sarge, who gave her a small, encouraging nod. She hesitated, her lip trembling. Then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, she said, "Daddy got mad. He was yelling. He hurt Mommy." She pulled her small backpack from her shoulder and unzipped it. Inside was a crayon drawing. It showed a big, dark, angry stick figure looming over a smaller one, while a tiny figure ran away. At that exact moment, another car pulled up. It was Elena, Lily's mother. She stumbled out, a big pair of sunglasses failing to hide a fresh, ugly bruise on her cheek. When she saw the sheriff, the bikers, and her husband, her composure crumbled. The public scene. The witnesses. It finally broke the dam of fear she'd been living behind. "He's been lying to all of you," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "He's been lying for years." A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. This wasn't a kidnapping by bikers. This was something much darker, hiding in plain sight behind the door of a perfect home. Mark's face went from angry to pale, cornered panic. The mask was gone. Sheriff Bradshaw stood up. His entire attitude changed. He looked at Mark, no longer seeing a victim, but a perpetrator. Lily's story, the drawing, and the raw evidence on Elena's face painted a grim, undeniable picture. He spoke into his radio, his voice cold and official. Then he turned to Mark. "Mark, you're under arrest for domestic assault." As the sheriff cuffed him, Mark's control shattered, and he let out a stream of denials. But no one was listening anymore. They were all looking at Lily, and at the unlikely guardians who had stood up for her when no one else would. With Mark gone, a strange calm fell over the scene. The danger was gone, but Lily was still trembling. The show was over, but the bikers didn't just roar off into the sunset. They stayed. Sarge knelt in front of Lily again. He carefully unzipped his own leather vest, the one with the Hell's Angel patch, a symbol of brotherhood that the town had always seen as a symbol of fear. He gently draped it over Lily's small shoulders. It was huge on her, swallowing her whole, but as she pulled it tight, a look of pure safety settled on her face. It was a shield, a promise. But they did more than that. Preacher spoke quietly with Elena and the sheriff, getting the details for a protective order. Styx, seeing Lily's scraped feet, went into the diner and came back out with a first aid kit and a pair of his own clean socks, which he gently helped her put on. The diner owner, who used to serve them with silent judgment, now came out with a tray of hot chocolate and coffee. "This is on the house, fellas," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The perception of an entire town was changing in real time. The monsters weren't monsters at all. They were the only ones who had seen a child in pain and didn't look away. They had stood their ground, not with violence, but with an unbreakable presence. In the weeks that followed, the Hell's Angel became local legends. They escorted Elena to her court hearings, their silent presence a powerful warning. They helped Elena and Lily find a new, safe apartment. Sarge even used his mechanic skills to fix up an old car for them. They became a fixture in Lily's life, her rough-around-the-edges uncles. They taught her how to ride a bike, her laughter echoing in the park as Styx ran alongside, holding the seat. Preacher discovered her love for drawing and started bringing her sketch pads and pencils, sitting with her for hours while she created new worlds on paper. And Lily changed them too. She brought a lightness into their world of hard miles and harder pasts. She'd run to greet them with her arms wide open, fearlessly hugging their leather-clad legs. She gave Sarge a new drawing to replace the one from her backpack. This one showed a little girl holding hands with a circle of big, smiling men on motorcycles under a bright, happy sun. Sarge folded it carefully and kept it in the inside pocket of his vest, right next to his heart. They had become a found family, proof that the bonds of love and loyalty aren't defined by blood, but by action. Now, if you go looking for Oak Haven on a map of Connecticut, you won't find it. And the Hell's Angel Motorcycle Club? That probably only exists in a video game. But the story of Lily and Sarge isn't really about a specific place or a specific club. It reflects a powerful and often overlooked truth. While we often see the stereotype of the 1%er outlaw biker in movies, the reality is that countless motorcycle clubs across the world are dedicated to community, charity, and protection. There are real-life organizations like Bikers Against Child Abuse, or BACA, whose members do exactly what the Hell's Angel did for Lily. They are volunteers who empower and protect the most vulnerable kids in our society. They stand guard at homes, escort kids to court, and provide a wall of support to help them feel safe again. They prove that brotherhood and strength aren't about intimidation. They're about shielding those who need it most. So while this story is a dramatization, it's a tribute to all the real-life, unsung heroes on two wheels. It's a reminder that you can't judge a person's heart by the patches on their jacket. True heroes are defined by what they do when they see someone in need. They are the ones who, when a frightened child runs to them for help, kneel down and say, "You're safe now." What did you think of this story? Have you ever seen an act of unexpected kindness that completely changed how you saw someone? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. We read every single one. And don't forget to like and share this video to spread the message that heroes are all around us, often where we least expect them.